Hello, all. Um, I um, I love all your comments and your support, and it's good to know that my suspicions about adoption are reciprocated in the community. And if anybody wants to contact me privately, you can reach me at citizenbrianjames@gmail.com. Or you can I put together a Facebook under the name Brian James, which I think if you search Citizen Brian James under Facebook, you can add me there. It's a picture of an orangish guy with not very many viewers. I try and keep myself anonymous so I can speak a little bit more openly. I don't want to hide my face because I'm a person. And I want to put a sense of humanity back into my adoption journey. Um, you know, I wonder sometimes, like, I mean, where am I going with this? And maybe some of you are wondering the same thing. Where am I going or where are you going with your own adoption journey? And I think the answer to that is, and going through my own sort of psychoanalysis and getting to the root of who I am and the parts of me that have been kind of constructed in trying to fit into the persona that was given to me, my paper persona, if you want to call it that, whereas my mother and father and lineage and all these things and the archetypes in my life were chosen for me by some random social worker. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of good social workers out there, but let's face the facts that they can only be as good as the policies that they follow. And I think a lot of social workers end up in their positions because of their propensity to simply regurgitate what they're told and follow authority blindly. And the good the people with a little bit stronger morals, I think, maybe don't go as far in the great bureaucracy and end up sidelined. I'm starting to. I mean, I worked in the car industry, and we all have that idea of what a car salesman is. But through my own journey in mental health in the medical industry and adoption and stuff, I've started realizing that it's all the car industry. And sadly, the adoption agency isn't much difference. They're trying to accrue people instead of a used car manager trying to accrue cars. And it's a little bit scary. But I digress. Back to what I was saying. Where am I going with this? Well, ultimately, I feel that adoptees require a formal international agency of its own to have the best interests of the adoptee at heart. And God knows we are not going to get that from any adoption agency because they're getting paid. And it's in their, you know, that's it. They have quotas. They don't give a shit. Let's be honest. They don't. And the ones who do are not going to last doing what they're doing because how many times can you go separate children from their families before you realize what you're doing? How many? For some a lot, I think. But anyways, secondly, I'd like, I see a lot of push in the other adoption movements to have open records for adoptees. I mean, that should just be an absolute given The adoption should be completely reformed, in my opinion, whereas it's guardianship, foster parents. And as far as adoption goes, that's something that needs to be decided by the child. And even then, even then, is a child able to make that decision? Really? And where does that turn into, just another tool for the adoption agencies of turning it into a guilt process? Because that is our problem. We're guilted into, well, these are your parents and this, that, and the other, and it's Stockholm syndrome. I mean, how can you call it anything else? I mean, you're in a new world surrounded by people that you really have no choice but to trust and try to blend in with for your own survival. How terrifying is that? I mean, I think we've all had the experience of going somewhere to someone's house where we can't wait to get out of there. Well, what happens if that's the case for the adoptee? 18 years? Then you can leave? And in that 18 years' time, what if you don't get the things that the adoption agencies say that the adoptive parents are supposed to provide? The moral education, the financial education, these things of how to survive in this world. Because I can tell you, when I got my adoption papers and saw those things, I'm like, none of those things were provided. My adoptive father was an altar boy and has something against God. So, I mean, for me to even bring up anything spiritual in the household, it was like, drugs and this, that, and the other, drinking, smoking, fine. God, keep that outside. Keep that out of my house, right? So it was sort of a backwards moral situation if you looked at it maybe 50 years ago or something like that. Um, if I wanted to quit drinking, I had to do that secretly. Twice. Twice in my adoptive family was I attacked physically when I had quit drinking and was trying to talk a little bit about my feelings and resolve some issues that I was having. Um, how terrible is that? I mean, how absolutely brutal is that? Um, so I mean, if your adoptive family can't even discuss something that's should be out in the open, you're adopted. I mean, saying that and discussing the issues that go along with it, that's a problem. Well, if that's a problem, then I mean, you see the bigger problem, I think. So ultimately, where is this going? I want reform. I want my sovereignty. Okay, I want to be cut, just like I was from my birth family. I want to be cut from my adoptive family, and any relationships I choose to continue on with post is my choice. But at the same token, my birth name should be restored, and I should be given an absolute clean slate in the system, separate from the paper fiction that was created, that I had no choice but to play that part, to act a role that was not mine to act. Does that sink in? Does that make sense? Because I was not that person, the son of these people. I was not um, any of those things. So I've been living as an imposter my whole life. And I'd like to come out of the closet as that, yes, I've been faking it. I've been trying to blend in as like these people to try to be accepted by these people. And sadly, I never was. I never truly was. And I think it was a matter of guilt and immaturity and things like that kept it kind of going and together. Ignorance and simply not seeing the reality of the situation on their part, on my part. Um, you know, it's a devastating situation. Um, so all those things being said, my heart goes out to all of you that have struggled with adoption, and I'm hoping to overcome some of my ADD issues and other things to try to get more organized and to try to, as I mentioned, maybe get this into the courts, um, and possibly to a larger audience, because it can never change while the majority of the average individuals are ignorant of the situation, and the adoption agencies and the governments and the powers that be want to keep that under wraps so they can keep that going. Because there's nothing, it's just like, I think it was Jonathan Watson said, give me a baby and I will give you any kind of man you desire. And we can see very clearly what kind of people they desire: blind consumers. And when those consumers are used up, well, there's institutions that are profiteering from these throwaway kids, and there's drugs and alcohol until that doesn't work anymore for them, etc., etc. But I've seen far too many people, adoptees, go out on the streets hooking, you know, deaths by overdose, just lives falling apart, absolute roller coaster rides, and clueless of why it's happening, and feeling as though they're a screw up and they're alone, when in reality they're just trying to be something they're not. And eventually we can all see the results of how that's working out. Um, so we'll talk more about it. I think in my next video I'm going to talk a little bit about post reunion and incestual relationships, because although um, I have not been involved in an incestual relationship, I I do have some experience in that department. So we'll discuss that more next time. So add me on the Facebook, email me if you like, at citizenbrianjames@gmail.com. And like and share my videos, because this isn't going out through my mainstream name and channels. So if you feel there's people that can benefit from what I have to say, then please share it with them and or with your groups, and hopefully I can learn and they can learn from me as well. Thanks.